Hi, it's Bill Raymond. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Visual Studio with Azure DevOps repos. Let's go ahead and get started. As always, I'm going to start with a few slides first to get you up to speed, and then we'll go into the demos. You can look at the description below if you want to find out where the demos start. So Azure DevOps is actually a full platform for managing your development lifecycle. There's Azure boards, pipelines, artifacts, test plans, and Azure repos. We're going to focus on Azure repos in this video. I do have other videos, and I just actually published one on Azure pipelines, so you might want to check that out. A repo or repository is where you put your code for your solution. Now, you might have multiple repos for one solution, or you just might have it all packaged up in one solution. It's up to you. But the point is that each repo is a package of code, and you define how you want that packaged. Now, with Azure DevOps, you can have multiple sets of repos, and you can achieve that by setting up multiple projects. Here's where things get a little different than GitHub, for example. You can set up a project and have multiple repos in it, and then all those projects roll up to an organization. Let's take an example. Let's pretend like we work for Microsoft for a minute here. That might be our organization. And then underneath our organization, we could have a project or multiple projects. So for example, we might have a project for Microsoft Word, another project for Microsoft Excel. Underneath this Word project, you could have repos for Word for Mac, Word for Windows, and Word Online. Or you could just have one project called All Projects, and you can have all of your repos in there for your entire organization. So maybe Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Xbox, everything is just under one giant organization and one giant project. You have to define how you want that set up. So what's the difference between Azure DevOps and GitHub? Well, as you can see, Azure DevOps allows you to have a lot more control around the organization and structure of your repos, the security as well. With GitHub, you basically have your organization, or you, and then you just have a list of repos. So it's not really quite set up to have the advanced organization structure as Azure DevOps. So how would you use Azure DevOps? You'll probably just set up an organization under your name or your business. You'll have a project, and you'll put a bunch of repos underneath that. You don't have to do it this way, but that's how I do it with my organization because I'm just a small business. It's just me and a few people. Now, one thing that you do need to know is Azure DevOps is an enterprise application. Unlike GitHub, which certainly organizations use it to manage their enterprise code, and they use private repositories. But you as an individual, and most of the world thinks of GitHub more as a platform for sharing code amongst other people. And that's where GitHub is really powerful. With Azure DevOps, you can make your repos public or private. And both Azure repos and GitHub do offer free tiers, which is great. Now, here's the thing though. With Azure DevOps, it really is an enterprise app. There is so much that you can configure and tailor to meet your needs, and it's broken up into these different applications, but they're all kind of contained within one web application look and feel. If you want me to do more videos about how to configure Azure DevOps and, for example, boards and user stories and epics and configuring all of that, let me know in the comments. I'd really like to know if you're interested. But for now, we're going to jump into how we can use Visual Studio, Git, and Azure DevOps repos. As I mentioned, Azure DevOps has a free solution for you, so just go to azure.microsoft.com and sign up. Once you've signed up for Azure DevOps, you'll get a URL, an organization, and a project. Now, you can create as many projects as you want. You can even create multiple organizations. But I recommend you just start with the organization and start with the project. You can, of course, see when I mouse over, there's a repos icon. And if I click on that, you'll see it goes to a URL that says _git/Bill Raymond. And you can see here, it says that it's empty. Add some code. So that's what we're going to do next. If you want to create your own project before you get started, you can definitely do that. But remember, one project can have multiple Git repos underneath it. To get started, we're going to run Visual Studio 2019 and click Create New Project. In my case, I'm going to create an ASP.NET Core Web application. You can search for that up here at the top. Click Next and create it. And now that it's created, we'll go ahead and run it just to see what it looks like. And depending on the version of Microsoft Visual Studio you have and what project you selected, you'll probably have something that looks like this. There's a welcome page and a little bit of scaffolding with some links to get us started. Before we do anything to our code, we're going to add it to a Git repository. Now, you can have a Git repository local on your computer. So come down here to the bottom right-hand corner of Visual Studio and click this Add to Source Control item and choose Git. Now you might be asking me, well, wait a minute, Bill. I thought we were using Azure DevOps. Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. But keep in mind that Git is the way in which you'll manage your project's source control. It's an open source source control solution, and Visual Studio and Azure DevOps support it. There is also Visual Source Safe, but that's a conversation for another day. Okay. We can see that our code is in source control because there's this master branch item here, and down in the bottom right as well, it shows our web application 1 with the little Git icon next to it. Also, the Team Explorer displays here. If you don't see the Team Explorer, now's the time to put it on your screen. Go to the View menu and choose Team Explorer. Okay, good. Now you should have this page that says Push to Azure DevOps Services, Publish to GitHub, maybe some other repositories. Well, of course, we're going to use Azure DevOps here, and we're going to publish that Git repo. So I'll click this button here. And once it's created, you're going to see that it has your username, the organization, and the repository name. So it says the organization is dev.azure.com/Bill Raymond. Well, let's go to the website for a minute and look at that Azure URL. It says dev.azure.com/Bill Raymond. There's our organization, that's cool. But what about the project? I could have multiple projects here and have repos underneath them. So where's the project? Click the Advanced link in Visual Studio. And now you can see that's where you can select the project. Finally, it asks you for the repository name. I recommend you keep the repository name as the default. This way, our project, which is also called Web Application 1, is the name of our repo. So click Publish Repository. Now we see Web Application 1 was pushed. See it on the web. Let's go ahead and click that link. And there's our code. If I come down here to Web Application 1 into Pages and to the index page, you can see there's our welcome page right here. Now, I'm going to leave this tab for a minute and come back to the original Azure DevOps page that I was showing you. Now, remember, we have a project and we can have multiple repos under it. I'm going to click the project now, and you can see here, it's kind of a little odd. Where's that project that repo that we just created? Well, remember that Azure DevOps is a bigger application, so there's a lot more to it. What we want to do is go to repos. So if I click the back button again, and I hover over here, it's better to just click this little icon. That brings us right to repos, and that brings us to the same place. If I had clicked on the project, then I'll have to come down here to repos, and now I can see it. But let's take a look at this repo for a minute here. You can see it says Web Application 1, and there's this Git attributes and Git ignore, and this Web Application 1.sln file. Well, let's head back to Visual Studio and go to our Solution Explorer. Where's that git ignore? Where is that solution file? Well, it turns out, and you're going to find yourself doing this a lot when you're using Git especially, you're in the solution view right now, the project view. It's kind of giving you, Visual Studio is giving you a nice layout to work with your code in a way that, in this case, .NET likes to see everything laid out. Well, if I come up here to this icon in the Solution Explorer that says Switch Views, I can choose Folder View. And now I can see there's my Git attributes, git ignore, and the web application one.sln. Even though they're not in that project view, notice that there are still little locks next to them. So everything in the folder, not just this view, is under source control. Okay, so let's talk strategy here. I want to change the code in one of my pages. So I can expand pages and come over here to the index file. And now I want to change this welcome text to hello world. I can just go ahead and make that change and save it, and it's all good. But really what I want to do is make sure that I follow some best practices. Now, if it's just you working on your code and it's not a large solution and you can just make that change without worry, go for it. But a good way to kind of follow best practices is to say, I have a package of changes that I need to make. It might be small, might be a little bit larger, but they're all kind of related. What you want to do is create a new branch and then make your changes from that branch. So what you can do is come down here to this little master icon, and then you can just go ahead and choose Manage Branches and add it. Or you can do the same exact thing, which is to go to Team Explorer, go to Branches, okay, and then click New Branch. Both of those options bring you to the same place. And so I'm going to work on a branch called Update Index File and click Create Branch. Now I know that Update Index File is selected because here in the Team Explorer you can see it's in bold. I also know that it's selected because down here in the bottom right, this is the branch I'm in right here, you can see it says Update Index File. So you'll not always have the Team Explorer displayed, but you will most likely be able to notice it down here in the bottom right. So pay attention to the branch that you're working on before you make any code changes. Right, so let's make our change. So it says, welcome. I want to change this from welcome to hello world. And let's just go and run it. I'm not going to keep running the code because this is pretty much the only change that we're really making. But let's just make sure that it does indeed run. Perfect. We have our hello world text in our app now, so we can go back to Visual Studio. At this point, you kind of just staged the change. You haven't really did a commit so that it's committed to source control. What does that mean? Let's take a look at this index file here. And if I hover over, it says pending edit, this little red checkbox. What this is telling us is that while you made the change, and you were certainly able to run the code and test it, the change is not really in your source control environment yet. So if I right-click on the index file, you can see undo, and undo is, don't think of this as Control-Z undo. This is undo all changes that you made to the file, whether you exited Visual Studio and came back in later or not. You can undo anytime there's a little red checkbox. I can commit, I can view history, I can even compare. Now this is a really cool feature. If I compare, you can see on the left-hand side, there's our welcome text, and on the right side, there's our hello world, and you can see any changes that we make get highlighted. I'll close this. The point that we want to make here is that, or rather, what we want to do is right-click on the index file and commit it. And here we're going to make a commit message. So I'll just type changed index file welcome text to hello world, and then choose commit all. Now, at this point, you've made the changes on your local machine. Notice it says sync to share your changes with the server. This is what's important to know about working with Git. You make your changes locally on your computer, and then you push the changes up to Azure DevOps. This is not automatic. You have to decide when you're going to do it. Conversely, any changes that you make in Azure DevOps will never come down to your computer. You're going to have to sync those down. So I'll click the sync link, and you can see it brings me to this page. But what if you don't have that sync link you had moved around? Just click the home icon, and you'll find the sync option. And then you can just push that outgoing commit. So you have a commit that you made on your local computer, and this is our outgoing commit to upload to Azure DevOps. I'll click push. And there. So now we should be able to go to Azure DevOps to review our code. Now here we are in Azure DevOps, and I'm going to mouse over my project and then click on the repos icon. And you can see it says, Bill Raymond is empty. Add some code. Well, we just added some code, so why is that? Well, that's because you can have multiple repos. So I'll click on this pick list here at the top and choose Web Application 1. And there, now you can see the code is up here in Azure DevOps. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that folder and go into the pages and take a look at the index file. And I'm going to look and see our hello world. Nope, doesn't look like I'm seeing the hello world text. It still says welcome. Well, why is that? That's because remember we have two branches in our code. One of those branches is the master, and then the other one is where we have made our changes in our application. So if I come up here to the top left and I click on the master pick list, you can see there's the other branch that has the hello world text. So you can go ahead and select that. What you need to be aware of is this pick list does not always update as quickly as you'd like. So if you don't see your branch, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Just come over here to this branches icon and click that instead. Good news is our branch is showing up, so go ahead and click that. And now you can see there's our hello world text. Now remember, we're still in this update index file branch. And if I click here and go to master, you can see at the master, it still says welcome. But when I switch back over here to the update index file branch, it says hello world. Now it says update index file, so that's what we're doing. Now I changed it to hello world, and my peers said, well, I don't know about that. Can you change that to hi there instead? So I'll just go in here and say, instead of hello world, hi there. And I'll save that. And remember, nothing's changed quite yet until I commit that in the index file. So I'll right click and choose commit. And then I'll say changed index message to hi there, and commit that. There. I'm not going to sync this up to Azure DevOps quite yet. Now, what happened? I made this change, and someone said, oh wait, Bill, no, we need to put it back to hello world. Just ran it by legal. We need to put it back. So I could, of course, make that change and commit it again. But let's take a look at one other option. I can come down here to this branch area here and say view history. And so I'll go ahead and do that right now. And what you can see is a list of all of the things that have changed in the code. Here's where we changed it to hello world, and here's our hi there. So if I don't want hi there in there anymore, I can just right click and choose revert and say yes. Now what happened? Well, it did revert, but it doesn't look like it did. So I'm just going to come up here. You're going to like this history, and I think you should remember that it's here and use it frequently when you're trying to figure out like changes that you made in your code. However, when you do a revert or some other actions in this page, you will have to use this refresh icon. So I'll refresh, and now you can see that there was a revert that occurred. So what happened? I reverted the hi there change, so my code should now go back to hello world. Let's take a look and see. Sure enough, there it is. There's the hello world. Now at this point, we're really comfortable with our code, and we want to get it into the master branch. So how do we do that? What we'll do is come over here to our branch and set it to master. It still says welcome. So what I'll do is come up here to the home icon in the Team Explorer, and I'm going to say branches. I'm going to click on branches. And you can see master is selected, and I'm going to choose merge from branch, update index file. So we're going to go from the update index file into the master. Watch now as this welcome text changes after I merge. There. Now it says hello world in the master. So basically master and update index file match. At this point, we want to upload our code up to Azure DevOps because we now have our master branch updated. So it's real important that we do that. So we'll click the Team Explorer tab here. And once again, if you don't have that, go to the View menu and choose Team Explorer. Click the Home icon and choose Sync. You'll notice all of the changes that you've been making, including the revert, are all here. So just go ahead and push those out. And good, you're all set. This is where I store my code. It's under source repos. And you can see there's a web application 1, that's one we've been working on. Now maybe I accidentally deleted it, formatted my hard drive, computer was stolen, or I never even had this code because someone else was working on it and asked me to collaborate. Either way, I need to get it from Azure DevOps down onto my computer. So I'm going to remove this from my computer right now. There. So now Visual Studio won't be able to open it because I deleted it. When you run Visual Studio 2019, you'll get this Get Started panel. Now sometimes people disable this, so I'm going to show you how to clone or check out code from the Visual Studio user interface, but do know that the same option is right here. There's no difference. So I'll choose Continue Without Code and go to the File menu and choose Clone or Check Out Code. You can see here I can enter a remote Git repository, or I can just choose Azure DevOps. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Then I'll choose Web Application 1 and click the Clone button. So what I'm doing is downloading all of the code from Azure DevOps down to my computer. There, it's been done. Now you can see here's that Git attributes and Git ignore. Where's that nice layout that I should expect from Visual Studio? Well, remember, I have to click on the Switch Views option and then go to the Solution view. And once I do that, you can see all my code is here. It's in source control. And if I even come down here, I can verify it's in source control. See, Web Application 1 has a source control item next to it. And there's that master branch that we were working on. If I choose View History, you can see here's all that work that we did. Okay, so we didn't just pull down the master, we actually pulled down all of the code, including any of the changes that we made. Back in Azure DevOps, I'm going to go to the code for my project. So I'll hover over the card for Bill Raymond, click on the repos icon, and then just make sure Web Application 1 is selected. And it is. Now what I'm going to do is create a file up here in Azure DevOps. I'll click the New item and choose File. Almost every repository should have a README file. And what do I mean by almost? Well, I guess technically you don't need a README file, but it's recommended. And you call it readme.md. MD stands for Markdown, which is like a simplified version of HTML. So I'll go ahead and click Create. And then I'll just type in, this is my app. Welcome. I can just go ahead and type whatever I want. The point here isn't necessarily that we're creating the README file, although this could be useful for you. And oh, by the way, if I click preview, you can see that's what it looks like in Markdown. But the real thing that we're looking to do here is to make a change on the web and then bring that down to our local Visual Studio app. So I'll go ahead and commit this. I'm going to commit it to the master branch. I could have created a new branch and then merged it after that was done, but I'm just going to go ahead and add that to my master branch. There. Back in Visual Studio, we can go over here to the folder menu and take a look. We do not have that README file, even though it's up in Azure DevOps. Why is that? Well, remember, everything you do with Git, you have to decide. There's nothing automated here. When you want to add code, you have to know whether you're going to create a branch or not. When you want to publish something up to the server, that's your job. When you make a change on the server, you decide when you're going to pull it down, or if you ever will. Okay, so here we have this area where we want to get the README file. So I'll go to Team Explorer, and then I'm going to go to Sync, and click Sync. There, that's been done. So now let's go ahead to the Solution Explorer, and there's that README file. If I open it up, you can see there's the text that we just entered. Okay, now that we're done with this session, I'm going to just walk you through a few tips and tricks. Remember that you do have your organization link over here and your list of projects. You can click on the project, and to get to repos, you click over here and you go to Files. But remember, if you're at the organization level, you might as well just hover over the card and choose the repos icon. That will get you there faster. Also remember that sometimes this pick list does not refresh as quickly as you might like. So if you can't find the branch you're looking for, just come over here to the branches icon. You have to have the Azure repos icon selected, but then you'll have a branches option, and this will allow you to get to the one that you're looking for. And finally, remember in Visual Studio, all of your code underneath the folder that you're working on is always under source control, whether it's the individual files or the things that you see in the solution view. Remember to get between the solution view and the folder view, just make sure you're in the Solution Explorer tab, and then click this icon up here to toggle between the solution view and the files view. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.